Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Bloome, host of Soul Wisdom Abundance, Create Wealth Through Spiritual Health on Transformation Talk Radio. Once again, I am truly delighted and honored that you all are spending your time here learning a little bit more about money, how to do it in a new way. Because the reality is, when each of us learn how to be more conscious in our soul-money relationship, we change how we show up on the planet. We change how we interact with each other. We change the balance of power, truly, when we each can own and be conscious in our own money relationship. And if you're interested in continuing the conversation that we start today, or you want to know anything more about the soul money relationship, I'm going to invite you to join me over at Soul Abundance on Facebook. Lots of conversations there, lots of more information, and I'm always game to answer a question or two. So come on over. Okay, so I truly am like a kid in a candy store with my guest today. Seriously, one of the things that I talk about is that we often try to use money to fill holes, right? We try to fill it with our hole of not feeling enough, not feeling worthy, not deserving, not being seen, not being heard. Somewhere along the line, we got this idea that money is what gives all of that to us. And so I that's something I play around with and think about a lot. And I was scrolling through Facebook one day, as I am wont to do, and I come across this essay. And the first line of the essay is, "We are a culture tormented by scarcity and lack." And I felt like Renee Zellweger and Jerry Maguire, right? Tom Cruise shows up, gives this great big speech, and she's like, "No, you had me at hello. You had me tormented by scarcity and lack." So welcome, Kat Kim. I have been patiently waiting for this
Oh,
chance to
yay.
have a conversation. I'm so delighted that you're here.
Yeah. Thank you. Me too. I've been super excited to connect with you again because our first conversation was like, woo, we just hit it off and we're
We
like, this should be recorded right now.
exactly right. This is like take two, but
Yeah.
it'll be great. It'll be great.
Yeah.
So before we start in talking, let me just say a few things
Mhm,
about who you are and who you are
mhm,
in the world and what you're doing. Right. So
mhm,
you are a spiritual teacher.
mhm,
You are a leadership coach.
mhm.
You have a school, which is the School of Divine Confidence.
Yeah.
You've lived some life, right? You've
Few lives.
all right,
Yeah.
battled addiction,
Yeah.
abuse,
Yeah.
depression, come out
Yeah.
on the other side,
Yeah.
and really helping people have, as you say, unshakable confidence in who they are and what they're here to do.
Yeah.
So again, welcome.
Oh, thank
I
you.
can't wait.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Um,
Yeah,
I think my journey, if you don't, this, when you talk about
please.
addiction and this feeling of like not feeling
Yeah.
fulfilled and always seeking something outside of us, I think my journey started when I was 6 years old. Actually, my mother began feeding me diet pills. And I don't even remember if I was asking her to help me lose weight or was she, wanting me to lose weight. I just remember all of that was happening, but I was barely tall enough to look over, the kitchen counter sink. I was like, I had my hands on the kitchen counter sink one day, looking up at her. And one day she was, every day she would be at the cutting board and she'd be cutting these pills. And I asked her, well, why are you cutting these? And she said, well, these are diet pills and these are pills for adults. And you're just a child, so you only need half of them. And at that time, I wasn't, I hadn't developed the cognitive ability to think, well, is that a good thing? I just fully accepted in that moment that there was something wrong with me, and it needed to be fixed. And the only way to fix it was to consume something from outside of me,
Yeah.
right? And thus began a lifelong struggle of low self confidence, low body image, really, really horrible body image issues, lack of self worth. And I felt unworthy. I felt ugly. I felt unwanted, all by the time I was in second grade. And I grew up in also a very emotionally and physically abusive environment, so I started rebelling at a really young age, smoking at drinking at 13, doing hardcore drugs at 16. I started dealing cocaine at 18. I was transporting it from Washington State to California on the plane. This is pre 9/11.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and it was actually quite easy, believe it or not, to do that. And one day I was caught, I was handcuffed, put behind bars in Oakland, California, of all places. Oakland at that time was notorious for its high rates of violent homicides and
Mm.
crimes. And I was right in the middle of that, smack dab in the middle of that. And you would think that was my wake up call, but it wasn't. I was just on this path of self destruction and I was enjoying this ride. And I was taking it as far as I could. Um, and even while I was in jail, I was like, you know what, I'm here, I'm going to network. I'm sure there's somebody here that I can
Use the
connect with.
moment, right?
Yeah. I'm going to try to find a connection here. And I was trying to make drug deals while I was in jail. And at that moment, suddenly I was facing 3 years in state prison, but none of that mattered to me. I was absolutely fearless. But it wasn't a fearlessness that came from courage, from the heart. It was a type of fearlessness that came from absolutely no self worth, no regard for my life and my future. And I got out of jail. I pled guilty. I went to rehab, but and I cleaned up from the drugs. But that sense of not being fulfilled, that sense of not being good enough, that didn't go away. That stuck with me, and that manifested into you know emotionally abusive relationships with men. And this entire time, all these years, I walked around like I was the ugliest, meanest bitch in town. I was a bully at times. That's probably one of them, out of all the things I've done, including going to jail and dealing drugs, that's
Yeah.
probably one of the most shameful things I've done, which is to bully somebody. Um, but all of that, I walked around like I was just a horrible, mean person. Of course, I just attracted that and validated everything that those beliefs to be true into my life. And it really wasn't until many years later, after being arrested, that I was walking down my apartment hallway. At that time, I was in a very toxic, emotionally abusive relationship, could barely lift my body off of my couch because I would lay in the couch all day. I felt this dark energy just pushing me down. I couldn't even move up. And it was one day I was somehow managed to get up. I was walking down my apartment hallway to the elevator, and across from the elevator door, there was this really big mirror, like top ceiling to floor, big
Mm.
mirror. And I glanced up and I saw someone in the hallway, and I saw their reflection in the mirror, and she was like really unkept. She was, wearing big baggy clothes. She looked really depressed. Her face was really puffy and swollen, and there was some sort of rash on her face. And in that moment, even though I was wallowing in my own toxicity, I just thought, oh my God, at least I'm not that bad. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. There was nobody else in the hallway. There was nobody else in the hallway. It was just me. I had become so disconnected from the woman that I wanted to be and the person that I was being that I didn't even recognize myself in the mirror in that moment. That's when I decided, finally, that was my wake up call. And I decided in that moment I would do whatever it takes to become the woman that I wanted to be. I wanted to be powerful. I wanted to be beautiful. I wanted to walk into a room and have people notice me, not for my looks, but for the substance of my character. And I began studying everything under the sun, Jennifer, around transformation. I became obsessed. And I became a certified image consultant. So I studied like color and style and body shapes and how do we accentuate and highlight our best features instead of focusing so much on what we don't like. And then I became a nationally certified personal trainer to understand what the body goes through, the physical body goes through to undergo transformation. And then I became a certified and then I went under life coaching. So I became a certified transformative life coach, where I began to understand our mindset and how our thoughts and our beliefs really impact our behaviors and our results. And interestingly, this quest for transformation on the outside kept taking me deeper and deeper and deeper inside into the world of spirituality, metaphysics, quantum physics. And this is where I discovered that everything that we are wanting, desiring in the physical world, all already actually resides within us. And it all boils down to our relationship with ourself and our relationship with spirit or God. And this is where I discovered what divine confidence really is. Divine confidence is an unshakable faith in knowing who you are and what you're here to do, regardless of the circumstances outside in the world, regardless of a global pandemic, regardless of an election, regardless of who the president is, regardless of even how much money is in your bank account, because that's been a theme in my life as well. Regardless of those things, who am I? I am a direct manifestation and individualized expression of God itself, of spirit.
Right? We're
I am,
divinity, right?
yes, of divinity. Yeah,
We that's who we are.
it's
That's
who
and
we
we
are.
forget,
Yeah,
right? We forget. And I
yeah,
suppose it's what we're sent here, if
yeah,
whatever language you want to use, right? As we come
yeah,
here to the planet,
yeah,
we separate, right? And we forget all of that. And
yeah,
here we are. And as you're describing your journey,
yeah,
to me, the image that I got was like of the inside of a nautilus shell, right? So walking that
mhm,
edge and then around and getting tighter and
mhm.
tighter right into the
Yeah,
center,
yeah,
yeah, of
yeah,
remembering
yeah,
that, okay,
yeah.
even if
Mm,
I remember when my bank account, I had $10, three
mm,
kids to feed, and $10,
mhm.
and even at that point it didn't matter, right?
Yeah,
I am divinity,
yeah,
and that's what I have to feed myself
yeah,
if I want to
yes,
feel better, really feel better,
yeah.
and to have a real power to shift what's around me.
100%. I love it. Yeah, it's our relationship to divinity, knowing and recognizing and claiming our own divinity. And when we do that, it's a absolute knowing that divinity is our source. God is my source, right? Spirit is my source for all things, including money, power, love. There's nothing outside in the world that can actually fulfill me. It all comes from my relationship with spirit.
Right, and then when we know that, when we fill ourselves, like truly fill and embody that knowing,
Yeah.
it makes it easier, I think,
Mhm.
than to find things that feel fulfilling on the
Yeah.
outside, right? So instead of looking for, okay, I want to do X, I want to do Y, I want to be on Wall Street, I want to be a
Mhm.
teacher, whatever, and saying that's going to fulfill me
Yeah.
inside out,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, well, when you're connected to that divinity and you're connected to the wholeness and the ever flowing um, um, abundance that's already happening, when you're connected to that, you actually don't have to look outside of you. It's already there. And whatever you claim on the inside, you're going to experience it on the outside. That those are the metaphysical laws that we're playing with here, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So if you were to talk to somebody who is really in the throes,
Mhm.
right, of feeling not enough, regardless of what that bank account looks like, because there are plenty of people
Mhm.
who are even millionaires, right, who
Mhm.
still feel that scarcity inside. There are
Yeah,
people who are size twos who
yeah,
and beautiful who feel
yeah,
that scarcity inside, right? So it doesn't really matter again what the external looks like.
yeah.
When if somebody is really struggling with that sense of worthlessness,
Mhm.
or just not really being able to reach to that feeling of enoughness,
Yeah.
how do you guide people? What are some of the first tools that you help people with to find and
Mhm.
embody that
Yeah.
knowing of divinity?
That's a good.
Because I know I asked you a question, and I'm just going
Yeah.
to just pause for just because you talk a lot about the spirituality that's out and present, right? And it's
Yes.
sort of really easy to kind of flip and say, oh yeah, I'm divine, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I connect with God,
Yeah.
but you got to embody it, right? It has to be something that you really touch and know
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah.
So now I'll turn the
Yeah.
floor over to
No,
you.
it's really, really powerful question. I think this is a great segue into that article that I wrote because how I would have answered that question 5 years ago is very different from how I would answer that question now. Because 5 years ago, before wrote that essay, I was practicing and I was preaching these, manifestation tools. Well, if you want that, then you have to think like that. You have to be positive, focus on only what's good. And, I built a thriving business off of those types of teachings. And then I had this whole like come to Jesus moment. It was more like a dark night of the soul moment where I realized, well, wait a second. These very basic spiritual teachings and spiritual that doesn't apply to everyone. And why is it then? Because I've had clients who are millionaires, okay, who own businesses, they own buildings, they own wineries. And I've also worked with people who are single mothers who have no money, But why is it that the common theme, no matter what you have accomplished and no matter how much money you have, why was it the common theme is that there's just not enough? No matter how much, like I just need a little bit more. I just need this one thing, and then I could be happy. And I just saw this thing where we're like constantly, no matter where you are, socioeconomically, always reaching and wanting and desiring for one more thing, and then I would be fulfilled on the inside. So I was like, what's going on here? And then I also thought the same thing for me. What's going on with me? How come I'm having that feeling? I know I have enough. If I look around, I'm surrounded by abundance. But what is this feeling of scarcity that I just can't seem to shake? And I realized that we are absolutely a culture that is tormented by scarcity and lack. And I began to just really see that there's been this marriage between spirituality and consumerism. And these spiritual laws that people are teaching around, think positive, there's an abundance of everything out in the world, you can have whatever you want. I realized that was married to consumerism, and the consumer culture, like everything else, it had co-opted spirituality. It had taken spirituality under its wings. It has created a relationship with it. And I realized, in the essay that I write, I call it consumer spirituality. And essentially it's the marriage between consumerism and spirituality that really just trains us to be better consumers without and while kind of reinforcing the oppressive structures of consumer capitalism that drive so much of our behaviors and that are really, really harmful for
Absolutely,
our world.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah, right. And I think woven in here too is how our culture likes to do power, right?
Yeah.
That idea of power over,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're going to have power over somebody,
Mm-hmm.
the way you do that is by telling them there's a lack of something,
Yeah.
right? So you better go get yours, consume, 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 get more,
Yeah.
put more in the bank account, and you
Yeah.
better get yours before somebody over here gets theirs,
Yeah.
right? And then the whole thing just continues like an engine down the tracks.
Vicious cycle. Here's the
Mhm.
thing about the consumer culture, and we're talking about extractive consumer capitalism, okay? Um, the consumer culture thrives off of scarcity, fear, and lack.
Yep.
It cannot survive. It cannot survive. Industries would collapse if all of a sudden each and every one of us claimed our sovereignty, claimed our divine confidence, and claimed that I am worthy right here, right now. I actually don't need all of those things. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what that would do to all the industries around us? Well, they already know that. So, so there are mechanisms, there is advertising, there are things in place to instill in us, brainwash us, and convince us that we must purchase something, we must buy something, and that we need something outside of us in order to be okay. I get really pissed off about this. I'm starting to get fired up.
I can tell. Here it comes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, right. This is the fire that wrote that
Yeah,
essay, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, because it's harmful and it kills people. We have an epidemic right now. If y'all haven't noticed yet, there is an epidemic of fear that is just spread throughout our country and throughout the world right now. And I can't believe that it's taken a global pandemic for us to stop and pause as a global culture, as a global nation. Because I think, I mean, it should have stopped a long time ago, but for me, it was when children were being shot at schools. For me, that, and this is, this happened 10 years, this started happening 10 years ago, mass shootings. That's when I was like, what's going on here? And
And
why aren't we pissed off? Why aren't we doing anything?
right, why, yes, exactly. Why are we saying that that's okay? Why
Yeah,
are we not shutting down everything that
yeah,
goes into it? And of course, it's a complex issue, right?
very
But
complex. Mm-hmm.
but if we don't care, it never changes. Or if we want to keep systems in place, or the powers that be want
Yeah.
the systems to stay in place, then nothing
Well,
changes.
well, here's the thing. We've become so addicted to the system
Yeah.
that we are in the rat race. All of us. It doesn't actually matter left wing liberal or right wing conservative. I don't. It doesn't, like, and I said earlier, if you are rich, if you are poor, it doesn't actually matter. All of us are, and I'm speaking very generally, but all of us are in that place of scarcity and lack where we just want to survive. We're all just trying to survive. And so people who are in survival, they don't have the capacity to remove themselves from that and think about, actually, let's take a look at these real issues that are going on. How can I support, and how can I give? How can I serve? Right? Because people who are in scarcity and lack cannot serve, they cannot give. They're just like desperately just trying to get that next breath of air.
Right, right. I have to feel safe.
Yep.
Right, right. And the only way to feel safe is to continue to gather things.
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
So, okay. So here's what I tussle with,
Yeah.
because I'm on board 1000%.
Mm-hmm.
And we cannot change the systems without looking outside of ourselves, and
Yeah.
without reaching a hand out to other people.
Yeah.
And as a woman,
Mm-hmm.
right, one
Mm-hmm.
of the other things that has been, and this is a theme of not enough as well,
Yeah.
right, we women have been taught, do it all.
Yeah.
Right, do it all, do everything, be the mother, be the business owner, do this, blah blah blah, all, and on and on and on. And we have been
Yeah.
also taught to give,
Yeah.
right? And this goes beyond, it's better to give than receive, right? But we, right, again, part of our worthiness comes from
Mm-hmm.
putting out into the world.
Yeah.
So how do we balance the, because we need to fill our cups,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
And right, how do we balance that with being somebody who can look outside of ourselves and say,
Yeah.
I can reach out and give you a
Yeah.
hand up?
Yeah. I love that. Great question. Well, this is where, I made this real, very distinct transition in my career when I moved away from this kind of consumer spirituality type of teaching, where, it's all about, if you just think positive, you can create the world that you want, and, you can have whatever you want. When I mentioned earlier, I kind of went through this dark night of soul journey, and I realized, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. This is not what I'm being called to teach around spirituality. And so I began removing myself kind of from the mainstream pop culture spiritual teachings, and I went deeper in my spiritual teachings, and I started reading Dr. Martin Luther King and Matthew Fox, and I was like, whoa, this is very different.
Right.
If you read Abraham and then you read Martin Luther King, it's like this, these are different types of teachings. And so, what I began to kind of discover is that, you know okay, so Dr. Martin Luther King says that a person cannot be fulfilled in life unless they are fulfilled in three dimensions of their life. And I got, oh my God, this is so good, because I had been kind of, going through this deep dive, and I was like, oh my, I think there are three areas here. And it just coincided perfectly with what I came up and what I call the three pillars of divine confidence. And Dr. Martin Luther King calls them three dimensions. I call them three pillars. And so, to answer your question, Jennifer, the first pillar is the pillar of self actualization. And
Mhm.
Dr. Martin Luther King calls this the length of life, right? So,
Yeah.
this is all about your unique individual needs. Mama, I'm speaking to you, mother. I'm speaking to you, mama. And this actually means not the needs of your family, not the
Right.
needs of your kids. And by the way, they have their own unique desires, right? And they
Yes.
are sovereign beings separate from you, and you are sovereign separate from them. And this is about fulfilling your personal like needs. What is your heart's desire in the pillar of self-actualization? What is that? Your heart of heart's desire, not your kids, not your community, not your husband. And this is hard for mothers, right? But also in many ways, this is an area that we've overdeveloped in the Western world. Right? So you got to really think about what is it that you truly truly desire in this pillar of self-actualization. And then the second pillar is the pillar of social responsibility. And Dr. Martin Luther King calls this the breadth of life. This pillar is not about your unique needs. This is not about you as an individual, but this is now about you as part of the collective. You know, who are you as just one tiny part of the mass collective? How are you going to serve? What is your divine contribution to the world? What is your heart of heart's desire in the area of service? What are you here to give and offer? And this is, you know, this pillar is such a far removal from this place of scarcity and lack. It actually is the opposite of that. And when you step into this pillar, you're actually coming from the place of, I have so much right now. I have everything in this moment to offer something. So it moves you away from this thinking of what's in it for me towards what is mine to do, what is mine to contribute. And then the third pillar is the pillar of relationship with spirit. Dr. Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King called this the height of life, the constant upward reach to spirit or to God or to Creator. For me, I define it as nurturing this sweet, sweet, intimate relationship with spirit. You know, when we nurture relationships with our family or someone special in our life, we dedicate time to that person. We know that person so well that when they make a facial expression or they do something, we can already kind of understand where they're coming from. You know, there's that deep connection. Well, do we have that connection with spirit? Do we even trust spirit? You know, this pillar is so important. We cannot do the work that we're being called into because we're being called into that work through God or through spirit, through creator, through the divine. So it behooves us to create and nurture that relationship with spirit and to co-create and to even delegate to God. Delegate to God. And what does that mean? It means, hey, this is mine to do, but God, here's yours. This is what yours is to do because you're the one. You have the connections, you have the resources, you know all the details, and I don't. So I'm going to surrender that. I'm going to surrender that to God or to spirit. And that means this pillar requires absolute surrender, like letting go. Oh, okay. It's already taken care of. How powerful is that? So for me, these three pillars are important, and I suggest that none of them are optional. And it's at the center, it's at the where all of these three pillars intersect is where our divine confidence is.
That is beautiful. And I love the length, breadth, and height model, which we when we
Yes.
first connected, right? It's an essay that I have read from Dr. King, and I know this was a lot of what his work was underpinned by.
Yeah.
And I think that but it isn't a simple either or question. Either I help myself or I help somebody else,
Yep.
right? We are three-dimensional
Yeah.
and more
Yeah.
beings.
Yeah.
And when we can return the divine to the core,
Yeah.
it really it strengthens everything that we do. And it's funny, I hear myself saying this. I was raised without religion in
Yes.
my family, right? And so that I'm sitting here talking about the divine cracks me up sometimes,
Yeah.
but it really shows
Yeah.
how important
Mhm.
this is. And we've forgotten, right? We get caught up in the consumerism, we get
Yes.
caught up in the day-to-day acts of life.
Yeah.
And when we take the time
Yeah.
to come back into that, find that intersection,
Mhm.
right, where you call that divine confidence,
Mm.
life is juicy,
Yes.
and juicy not just for us, but for our entire community.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And here's the biggest thing I want all the listeners to take away is that we're all being called. Each and every moment we're being called into our highest good. When we step into that calling, we become the answer to someone's prayer.
Mm, major goosebumps. Major goosebumps.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. All right, I tell you what, this feels like a really good time to take a quick break. You're
Mhm.
listening to Soul Wisdom Abundance on Transformation Talk Radio, and we will be back in just a moment. Stay tuned. So we're back on Soul Wisdom Abundance. I'm Jennifer Bloome, your host, and we're talking today with Kat Kim. So, Kat, I tell you what, before we step into this next part of the conversation, can you let our listeners know how to find you and how to learn more about the work that you're doing in the world?
Yes, absolutely. Come find me on in Facebook. And I have a free group. It's called the Confident Leadership Community. And you can come join me there. I offer free training. I do a free Divine Confidence Masterclass. I do that regularly, absolutely free. So I'd love to see you there.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And I'm really struck again about how talking about that intersection, right? Between the divine, between you, right? Self-actualization,
Mhm.
and and the reaching out to the collective,
Yeah.
and that divine confidence being right there at the center. Because when I think about money, I
Yeah.
think about it being the intersection, or the soul money relationship being the intersection of our relationship with the divine, with ourselves,
Yeah.
and with the energy of money. Right?
Oh,
So it's really fascinating. Lots more we could chat about.
yeah, I know.
But here's so we're trying a new segment here on
Mhm.
the show, and I'm really excited. I appreciate that you're game to do this with me.
Yeah.
So one of the tools that I work with all the time to help people understand who they are at a soul level,
Mm,
and to really deepen their relationship with the divine.
mhm,
The tool is called soul language, and the this paradigm says that there are 107 different languages.
mhm,
So you can think of the divinity being split into 107 different languages. And we come to the planet, we bring three of those in our personal soul.
mhm.
And then we also bring extra energies to support us in every relationship that we have,
Wow.
including the relationship with money.
Okay.
So you have been brave and said yes. And I have identified one of your money languages.
Okay.
So quickly, there's three categories.
Okay.
There's your axiom of quest with money, which is all about how you and your soul like to play with money, how you like to
Mm.
expand money on the planet.
Okay.
There's your axiom of translation, which is how you energetically create resources.
Mhm.
And then there's your tone, which is the being state, the vibrational state that allows resources to flow easily.
Okay.
So I made a one-time connection with your soul
Mhm.
before we talked. And we're going to talk about that second category, the how, the energetic how of creating resources, the way
Okay.
that your soul likes to do it here on the planet.
Okay.
Okay. And so for you, this language is called sun, S-U-N.
Okay.
Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about the sun language, and then we'll see how it resonates with you. Okay.
Yeah.
So this sacred partnership with money languages skill lies in embodying the joy of money, the joy that makes up the divine energy of money, and the joy that comes in the physical plane experiences exchanged for money. The how of creating money with this team member is shining light onto all aspects of money, feeling the freedom and lightness of money, enjoying the light experience of money.
Mm.
So the special talents of this particular language is you are an example to others of how enlightenment and money can exist in the same space. Money is the same light as the divine. When you're not using this energy consciously, things that can happen. Um, You believe the darkness instead of the light, getting caught up in the earthly weight that's been put on money. You make money the light instead of the divine as the
Mm,
light. And you need money to seek enlightenment, or having money becomes about creating enlightenment.
mm.
So tell me, how is that hitting you? How does that resonate with you?
Yeah. Well, I absolutely, my father passed away 2 years ago with a gambling addiction, and
Hmm.
he left our family over $200,000 in debt. So you can imagine, it's not even just the $200,000 in debt. That's, you can fix that with money. But the undercurrent in our family lineage around money has been shame.
Yes.
So much shame and guilt, uh, because there's been not just the addiction to gambling, but there was also fraud involved. My father committed fraud against my mother, forged her signature to the deeds of the house. So there's been, every time money came into my life, it has come with pain. It has come with pain since I was a child. And so it has been a big topic in my life for a long time. And it's this thing that our family as a whole has been grasping for, and we have it, but then we hate it when we have it because, and then it's gone. So I would say that, not just me, but our family has given so much value to that thing, that money, and it's like, I came to the realization like, oh my God, there's an obsession around this thing. And this is not it. This is not how I want to be with money, because there's an absolute love and hate relationship, more of a hate relationship, actually.
Mm.
I actually would rather, I realized that I would rather not have it. And that it showed up in my life, like I'd rather not have it because every time it came into my life, it just caused so much pain. So recently, my practice and my journey with healing that relationship with money has been about going back inwards and redefining my relationship with spirit, and knowing that that's my source of abundance and prosperity.
Right, rather than this paper and coin
Mhm.
that really has been infused with so much, right?
Yeah,
Whether it's the abusive power,
yeah,
whether right there is a lot of darkness that that does feel like has been added to that
mhm,
money. But
yeah,
when we look underneath, when we approach it more from that understanding that, hey, this is just a tangible representation of divinity. That's
yeah,
all this is,
exactly.
right?
Yeah,
Then then we're free to have a different relationship with it.
exactly.
Yeah. So are you willing to play with me in one more way?
Yeah.
All right. So go ahead, if you will. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes for a moment.
Okay.
And I want you to imagine that you are sitting knee to knee, eye to eye with this energy called sun, this language called sun.
Mm-hmm.
And let me know when it feels like that's there for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, what does this language, and again, we're speaking directly to the divinity through this language. What does Sun want you to know about releasing that hate portion, or bringing more light to that hate portion
Mm-hmm.
that's been the family lineage and story?
Um, it's already happening. It's
Yeah,
already inside of me. I feel the warmth. I feel the heat. It's like blasting inside of my body right now.
yeah,
It's on fire, but in a good way, in a
yeah.
good way, and it feels so good. And it wants me to know that it says thank you for trusting
Oh,
me.
that's big.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
says it's time to play.
Whoop whoop. Oh, great. Yeah, fantastic. So we can say thank you to Sun, and you can
Yeah.
let that connection go. This is what I love about soul language is that these aren't just archetypes. These are literal pieces of the divinity that we get to talk to.
Yeah.
So and I love that sense of fire
Yeah.
and that sense of heat and warmth and joy,
Yeah.
because that's something, whether it's you or somebody who's listening, right? That's it's tangible.
Yeah.
We've been, you know, when we can start to look outside of what can money do for me?
Mhm.
What do I want to create? What do I want to make? And get to the being,
Mhm.
right? That real being state,
Mhm.
it really makes it so much easier to
Mhm.
be in relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right, right. So, okay. So, again, these what I love about what you had to say about all the different pillars and the
Mhm.
idea of self-actualization,
Mhm.
right? And really getting to know whether we use a tool like soul language or
Mhm.
whether we use a tool I mean, there's so many tools out there that can help us get to that real understanding
Mhm.
that we are divinity.
Yeah.
um, from that platform, right? From that understanding, where do we go? Like
Mhm.
what are we when as we allow ourselves to self-actualize and we start to reach out to the world, how do
Mhm.
we take those first steps? What is it that we're looking for as we reach out of ourselves?
Um So I guide people through these three pillars and I help them define what is their heart's desire in
Mm,
all three of these pillars. So I think that's where I want to drive people to first. It's actually not where do you go out in the world. It's where do you go inwards. That's where I want people to go and to ask, what is your heart of heart's desire in the area of self actualization? What is your heart of heart's desire in the area of social responsibility? What is your heart of heart's desire in the area of your relationship with the divine? And when I say your heart of heart's desire, I mean, think like do not limit yourself because the ego, the mind wants to get in the way and says, well, that's not possible. We can't do that. It needs to be done this way. I'm saying let go of all of those limitations. Let go of the restrictions because when you allow you that part of you to speak, you will discover that your calling is so vast and it's so profound. And of course it is because it's the calling of God.
right.
It is the calling of God.
So what's it going to sound like? Because, a
Yeah.
lot of times I ask, I love to ask big questions and I
Yeah.
love to connect and ask those questions. And a lot of times I hear things like if I'm asking for myself,
Yeah.
big themes start to come across, like step more into trust.
Yep. Yep.
You're safe.
Yes.
Those kinds of things. So when you are guiding people towards heart's desires, what's that going to sound like to them?
Okay.
Because it's
Really
going to
good
be
question.
different than what we might think.
No, and I think what you said is right on. So here's the thing. Again, we're constantly looking outside of us to fulfill the needs inside of us, right? So we're looking at I need this amount of money, I need this job, I need this label, I need this number of likes, okay? I need all of these things. I need this person to do this thing. And that's giving our power away. So when you take that, when in order to take that power back, you get in touch with your heart of heart's desire. Okay, so in your heart of heart's desire, in the pillar of self actualization, for example, if your heart of heart's desire, let's say, it is to, for me, in my heart of heart's desire, it is actually as I shared in my story, it was to be this beautiful woman and to walk into a room and have people notice me. So that was what was my pillar at that time. At that time, it was absolutely impossible. But instead of like focusing on the way that people react to me, I said, okay, if this is my heart of heart's desire, the step after that is what is the essence of that? What is the
Hmm.
essence of that? And the essence of that for me was beauty. It was beauty. And that's the thing that I have been denying in my life, my entire life. Because why? Because my mother fed me diet pills and told me I was ugly and I was not worthy. So beauty was the thing, it's the essence. And this is for me to get my power back, I was like, "Oh, okay. this beauty actually already lives inside of me. It's already there. And then it begins to change me on the inside on like a molecular level, right? So when you do that with each three pillars, you get to you get to the essence of the word, and that essence is the essence of God. That and you find that that is already living inside of you. You don't need anything outside of you. So here's the key. So when I did this with all three pillars, my three words were beauty, power, and ease.
Mm.
Beauty, power, and ease. And so this is what I help my clients through, is to identify those three words. Now, if I take those words, beauty, power, and ease, and I allow myself to embody those words, and I ask myself, if I'm embodying this every single day, you know, and I'm living this and I'm feeling it, and every word that comes from my mouth is coming from a place of beauty, power, and ease. Everything I do, if I'm showing up as the presence, okay, the presence of beauty, power, and ease, what am I doing 1 year, 5 years, 10 years in the future? That is the calling. And I saw something completely different from my life, you know? That's the calling. And that's how you get clear on what your true calling is.
Love it.
Yeah.
And as you're describing that, I'm feeling it as what I call the being state, right?
Ah,
So,
yes.
right. So if we can
Yes.
be
Yeah.
beauty, ease, power, whatever our words are, for I know for me, self-acceptance, right? When I do all of that work
Yeah.
with that first pillar,
Mhm.
self-actualization, it's
Yeah.
all about self-acceptance.
Yeah.
And and the reason why I had my money issues is I was looking for self-acceptance in the form of my bank account.
Right.
And but I couldn't allow money to flow because I didn't have the acceptance yet.
Yeah.
So it was just crazy, and it ended in bankruptcy. Right, when I be
Uh-huh.
self-acceptance,
Yeah.
and then I step into anything
Yeah.
else,
Yeah.
things get really exciting and
Yeah.
juicy, and
It
I start hearing things,
yes.
and you have to trust.
Yeah.
Trust that we can all hear it
Yeah.
and see it, right? Because it's a completely different way of being in the world.
Yeah. And that's that third relationship, that third pillar, your relationship with spirit. It is crucial that you're nurturing that relationship with spirit. And that's where the trust and the faith and the surrender comes from, because you can't do it on your own. You're not meant to.
And you can't surrender until
Yeah.
you have, as you step into that relationship with the divine,
Yeah.
you've got to have that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, surrender is like,
Yeah.
I'll surrender, but like I'm doing side eye, right? I'm looking
Yeah.
for whatever's going to come at me, right? Yeah, like
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't know. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Kat, this has been a fantastic introductory conversation. I'm
Yeah.
so, and it's gone deep in a lot of places.
Yeah.
So, is there one last thing that you would like people to know,
Mhm. Mhm.
to walk
Um
away with?
I want to repeat what I've said before, because this is really important, that when you step into that calling, when you become really clear about your heart's desires, your calling will also become really clear.
Mm,
And when you step into that, you really become the answer to someone's prayer. Why? Because the divine, God, our creator, is absolutely efficient. When a problem arises, the solution comes up with it as well. So somebody out there right now is praying, crying, wanting, desiring something. And guess what? You have the answer for it. And that's the feeling you have, the calling, the desire to step into something and do something important and make an impact. It's not just something your ego has created, it's an actual feeling that is being called upon you from the world outside of you.
mm, wow. I'm just going to sit with that for 5 seconds because that is so powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
I am going to encourage all of you to take a look at Kat's work, to join her Facebook group. I am going to be right along with you. And again, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today. I am so honored that you were here.
Thank you. I am so honored to be here.
Wonderful. All right, everybody. Thank you again for tuning in today. This is Soul Wisdom Abundance. I'm here on the first and third Fridays of every month, and looking forward to next our conversation next time. Please join in. And until then, everyone, prosperous blessings. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.